In this video, we're going to talk about the 3 questions that you should know to have the best mortgage experience possible. Hey guys, I'm Chris Gonzalez and I've been a mortgage lender for the past 11 years. My goal is to help you make the mortgage process as easy and efficient as possible. Question number 1 is, what should you know before you pick up the phone to call your loan officer? A lot of folks are afraid to make that first phone call because they don't know what to expect. So I'm going to make that very easy for you. So grab a pen and paper and let's go ahead and dive right in and write down what you need to be aware of, what you should know before you call. So number 1, your mortgage lender is going to ask you for all of your personal information like your full name, your date of birth, and your social security number. The next thing that any mortgage lender is going to ask is for your 2-year residential history. What I mean by that is, where have you lived for the past 2 years? We have to include if you've rented, if you've owned, if you sold a property, if you lived rent-free, or maybe you had a lease in place. All of that information is going to come up, so you might as well go ahead and get a piece of paper and write down where you've lived, look up those apartment addresses, the unit numbers, the zip codes. Go ahead and have all that information handy, especially if you've been moving around a few times. If you've lived in 1 or 2 places for 2 years, this might be easier, but I've seen residential histories of 7, 8 places in a 2-year period. The next thing your mortgage lender is going to ask you about is your employment history. So again, it's a 2-year history that you need to write down. So here's what I would suggest. Get your resume out. If you don't have one, now's a good time to go ahead and get it updated, or at least just get a piece of paper and write down where you're currently working and work backwards from there until you at least reach the 2-year mark. Here's the information that you should be writing down: your employer name, the address of where you worked, what your position was, and how much you earned. Now, the how much you earned part, it's important that you do a little bit of research here and take some time to really understand how you were paid. What I mean by that is, look and see if you were commissioned, salaried, or hourly, or a combination of all of those. Maybe you had a base salary, but you also received commission, or overtime, or bonus income. All of that income could be used to help you buy more house. However, each lender is going to have to verify where that income came from and to ensure that it's expected to continue. So you can make this process a lot easier by having listed out where you worked and how much you made and what the breakdown of that income was. This might take a little bit of work, especially if you had multiple jobs or if your income is very confusing. However, if you just take a look at your last 2 years of tax returns, or maybe the last 2 years of year-end pay stubs. So what I mean is, look at your most recent year complete pay stub. So maybe that's the December 31st pay stub, and look at your income. You'll be able to see how much you earned in base or commission or overtime, and you'll be able to tell your loan officer, well, I earned $30,000 salary, I earned $10,000 in overtime last year. You're going to be light years ahead of everyone else because more often than not, most clients don't have this information. So the lender will have to complete or get verified. So the lender will have to get a verification of employment completed. This can take time, and in specific markets where it's a seller's market, that means that you are competing with other buyers. You want to make sure that you have all the information ready so that your loan officer can verify your income and get you that pre-approval letter that you need to submit your offer. Let's talk about bank statements. You should at the very minimum know who you bank with and how much you have saved in each one of those accounts. Also, now's a good time to see how much do you have in 401k or IRA accounts or any other type of mutual funds or stock accounts, anything else out there. Now's the time. You don't need to write down each individual bank account number, but at the very least, just say checking, I have this much, savings, that much. In my 401k, I've got 10 grand. In my IRA, I have 3 grand. Go ahead and write those down. And that way, when the lender starts talking about your assets or how much money you have saved up, you're ready to go. You can answer those questions. So this first question was just based on what information should you have before you call. Now let's move on to step 2. You're making the call, or maybe the loan officer has scheduled a time to call you to take the application. So you should already feel more comfortable and more confident because you know the direction of the conversation. It's going to be mainly about getting your information so that the lender can then take their time and determine what kind of loan is going to work out best for you. So here are a few questions that you should be asking your loan officer. Number 1, hey, do I qualify for multiple types of programs? Here's a tip. More often than not, buyers will qualify for more than one program. It's up to the lender or you to ask, why are you being placed in a specific type of loan, and is there a better option out there? So make sure you ask that question. Question number 2, is there anything on my credit report that I can change or update that will allow me to qualify for a better loan? It might be something as simple as just paying down a credit card from a $200 balance to a $50 balance. And then the lender can complete what's called a credit rescore. Now listen, not every lender has the ability to do a credit rescore, so that's a question you should ask and then see what they say. If they don't offer a credit rescore, then you can still take the action. You can still pay down that credit card. You'll just have to wait for the credit bureaus to update the report themselves. If the lender can do a rescore, then what that means is you can provide documentation showing that you paid down the card or whatever you changed, and then the lender can go directly to the credit bureaus, and it speeds up the process. Lastly, here's what most clients and most borrowers think is the only appropriate thing to ask a lender. What's my rate? Now, I want you to understand that any given scenario, and when I say scenario, I mean a credit score, a down payment amount, a loan amount, a program type, they all have a range of interest rates. So it's important for you as the buyer or the borrower to understand that you can qualify for more than one of those rates. But very often, most lenders will only send you one interest rate option, okay? And it's basically just a lender just saying, I think that this would give me the best opportunity to earn this person's business, so I'm going to try to put together the most attractive interest rate package and loan fee package that will make this person use me for the loan. Well, here's what's wrong with that. The problem is that they're not you, and they don't know, unless they've talked about it, what is exactly important to you. Maybe it's more important to you to keep a little bit more cash in your pocket and have a slightly higher interest rate. Maybe you'd rather pay an extra $20 per month, but keep an extra $1,500 in savings. Or maybe you need a payment to be at a very specific dollar amount, and you need to know how much it's going to cost to get the interest rate that will allow you to hit that monthly payment. So it's important for you to understand what questions to ask. And here they are. Is there any other way to structure this loan, whether by lowering the interest rate and raising fees, or raising the interest rate and lowering fees? I'd like to see what my options are. Your lender can then have that conversation and say, well, what's most important to you? And start giving you a comparison, and that way you can see which one will actually work best for you and your family. Having the knowledge of how interest rates and fees work with lenders will allow you to be a better shopper. Now, the reason that most people ask, what's my rate, is because they want to be able to compare other lenders. The one thing that I want clients to know is that you have to compare the rate and the fees. So let's say lender A is offering an interest rate of 3.75 and fees of $2,000. And lender B is offering an interest rate of 4% and 0 in lender fees. Which one's better? The reality is that both lenders could probably do the other option. Lender A could bump up the interest rate and reduce the fees. Lender B could probably lower the interest rate and bump up the fees. So it's important for you to compare apples to apples and say, what is your cost for this specific rate? Let's say you know that you have a certain payment that you want to hit, and that rate of 3.75 gets you that payment. Now you can compare lenders by saying, I want to see what the fees are for the rate of 3.75. And now you can have a better comparison, which makes you a smarter buyer. So now you've wrapped up that phone call You've gotten your pre-approval letter. Now what do? Or more importantly, what do you not do? Don't co-sign for loans. Don't have your credit run by a bunch of different places. Okay, now listen, it's okay to shop for mortgages, but don't go out and apply for credit cards or car loans. Don't do anything that could affect what your lender has already verified. Now, listen, it comes up. You've gotten pre-approved to buy a home and you need to go buy a car. Well, call your lender and say, hey, I'm thinking about trading out my car, or I'm thinking about buying an additional car. How's that going to affect my pre-approval? And they should go over, well, what is the loan amount going to be, and what's the monthly payment going to be? A good lender should be able to give you the confidence to make changes to your credit report without affecting how much you can get qualified for. So make sure that you ask before you go out and buy or before you have somebody else pull your credit. Listen, if you found value in learning these 3 questions to know to make the mortgage process much easier, hit the subscribe button. I'm going to be bringing you weekly content and videos to give you tips and tricks to make the mortgage process much easier.